course.
Right? So we know that Danny, as a veteran, you bought your first property years ago. So you were looking for a house for a period of time without knowing that you have the availability to apply for this particular loan.
Correct.
Until you find the correct realtor per se.
Correct.
By the way, you know that you can actually tap into this opportunity?
Correct.
Nowadays, if you talk
So
to
imagine the
0%
house that I was
down.
looking at when I needed to put $30,000 down to the house that I was able to get with no down payment, right? It completely changed everything.
Your options. Exactly.
Correct.
The Closing Table y más, el podcast donde compartimos todo lo que necesitas saber sobre bienes y raíces, títulos legales y financiamiento. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Closing Table NJ. I'm happy to share that this is our first episode in English. As always, my good friend Ben Charling, my other good friend Elmer Perez, and myself, Ihan Quijano. And we have a very, very good episode today for all of you guys. We're bringing a very important guest, friend of ours. So we're very excited to have you here today. Danny, come over.
Welcome, Danny. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dan.
Brother. Welcome.
Thank you guys. A pleasure to be here. Partake of the closing table
Perfect.
with professionals like yourselves.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you for taking the time to come in over us and joining the Closing Table NJ, a podcast where we just want to share information about real estate and things along those lines, and also get a little to know you a little better, even though Dan is a personal friend of all of us. Very good friend. So another thing that we want to do now, every time we bring a guest, is do a proper introduction so our listeners could get to know a little bit of our guest now. So here we go. Daniel Gonzalez, born in Colombia at a very young age, moved to the United States. At 18 years old, he joined the military. And he also joined an infantry unit, later on became a sniper. And after 13 years of careers and multiple deployments, he retired in 2013. After 2013, he joined a company as a property manager, where he handled about 8 communities, equals to a total of 13 units, where he was responsible for budgeting, repairs, rules and regulations enforcement, and also handling or managing operational costs. After being a property manager for over 12 years, he then became or joined the Department of Labor of the state of New Jersey as an executive assistant to an assistant commissioner at the Department of Labor in New Jersey. Again, Danny, thank you so much. Appreciate you having you here, brother.
Like I said, thank you guys for having me. Only you can make me sound that impressive. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Beautiful introduction.
Oh, you're welcome, brother. And I also was requested to share that Danny here is a decent poker player. I'm joking. He's a very good poker player. We have what we can call it a poker club that we have been playing together every other month, and it's just so much fun. And you know, all of us that work really hard, it's always important to have something with the boys where you can relax, recharge your battery, and get yourself ready for the beginning of the week and so on. So like I was saying, you know, in this episode, we want to talk a little bit more about Danny, his history, his background, share a little bit of his knowledge in regards to real estate and so on. So I guess let's start from the get-go. One of the things that it's surprising to me from your background, Danny, it's, you know, when you are 18 years old. If I go back to when I was 18 years old, very mature kid, I didn't know what I was doing. But at that age, you took a very, very serious commitment and decision, which was to join the Army. Share with us a little bit how you got to that point, Danny.
So it actually comes before that. I actually wanted to join the military well before my 18th birthday. Both my grandparents on my mother's side, my father's side, were part of the police force, military, so on and so forth. So it was in my blood. I grew up watching, you know, all the Rambo movies and everything else. So when I hit 18, I think it was what I was waiting for. It was the moment. Didn't think about it twice. Enlisted and joined the military.
Wow.
Like you mentioned, I did quite a few tours. 13 years in the military, and that opened up doors for me later on. In multiple phases of my life, so it was always kind of.
We want to take the opportunity to thank you for your services, Danny. You know, that decision of joining the military is not for everybody, and I'm sure it tells a lot about you. I guess one of the things that we can talk about also is, we gotta tie this along with something with real estate, of
course,
right?
yeah.
So we know that Danny, as a veteran, you bought your first property years ago. Talk to us a little bit about how that process were. If you work with a realtor, perhaps an attorney in New Jersey, you have the ability to use an attorney or not. It's up to you. Same thing with a realtor. Did you use them? Did you get a loan as well? What kind of loan was it?
So it's kind of interesting because when I started, right, it's a VA loan, right? What a lot of people don't know is a VA loan, no down payment and so on and so forth, which allows you to look at different properties or you get more for your buck, kind of. One of the requirements was that you would use somebody that they prefer, somebody that's worked with the VA and everything else. And for 6 months, that was an ordeal, right? I always say, go with the people you know. They'll take care of you, right? Not your friends, but the people that are there to do their job and to do it well. So for 6 months, we dealt with 3 different realtors, and it wasn't until a realtor that was friends with somebody that I knew who also bought through a VA loan. We got together and the person said, okay, what are you looking for, right? I heard that you had bad experiences, but what is it that you're looking for? So we gave him a laundry list, right? We wanted this, we wanted that, we wanted facing this way, we wanted facing that way. The person found the house, and within a month, we were able to find a loan. The loan officer pre-qualified us and everything else. Again, the single fact that there is no down payment on a VA loan because it is protected by the VA, right? So if you default on it, the VA supposedly picks up the tab, right?
Correct.
I don't know all the ins and outs, but that's how it's sold to the person buying the house. And then we were able to close as long as it's my primary house. If I decide to buy a separate house, I list that one as a rental property. Then I move on and buy another primary house, which I could use my VA loan again. And you could continue to use that as long as you're using it for your primary house.
That's a great benefit, right? That's a good benefit. And one question that I have for you, because part of you being here with us is that we have a lot of a younger generation per se that are servicing now, and I have this conversation with them, and they're looking to do that transition, right, from being active to now being a civilian, getting a job, and tapping into the VA benefits. Can you tell us more about that experience of when you were serving? Were you already thinking about, okay, I know I have these benefits? How did that go about knowing about these benefits in general?
So I actually didn't know. When I was in the military, nobody really sits you down and tells you about it. Yes, when you're separating yourself from the military, you go through classes, you go through this, you go through that, but nobody really breaks it down for you. And that's when knowing people or working with people that you trust comes into play. So I started looking for a house. Again, I knew that there was a VA, so I called the mortgage guy. I said, listen, I'm looking for a mortgage. And, the regular questions, well, how much you want to buy? How much money do you have? And then he found out that I was ex-military or prior military. And he said, hey, listen, you qualify for what's called a VA loan. Do you know what that is? No, I don't. Well, it's a loan where you don't have to put any money down, right? The scary part about buying a house, or at least for me, was how much money do I need, right? What is that initial cost?
Right.
When you're, your late 30s or early 40s, sure, you have some money saved up because your parents told you to put money away, right? When you're your mid 20s, who has $30,000 saved up, right? So to find out that you're actually able to buy the house of your dreams or what you're looking for and not have to come out of pocket, 20, 30% is phenomenal, right? Because at that point, doors open up and the kind of house that you have is completely different from what you would be able to afford had you needed to pay down payment.
So you were looking for a house for a period of time without knowing that you have the availability to apply for this particular loan.
Correct.
Until you find the correct realtor per se.
Correct.
By the way, you know that you can actually tap into this opportunity?
Correct.
Nowadays, if you talk
So
to
imagine the
0%
house that I was
down.
looking at when I needed to put $30,000 down to the house that I was able to get with no down payment, right? It completely changed everything.
Your options. Exactly.
Correct.
What do you think
Correct.
about that, Ben?
I think that's great. I mean, for a lot of our clients, it's very challenging with the closing costs. So here, you're not having to put anything down, so it's a little bit more flexible, with the closing costs. I was going to ask you this, Elmer, with these programs from the state of New Jersey, can you also apply for the grant from the state of New Jersey and have a VA loan? Can that work together? Or-
Essentially, yes. So the BA loan, what they do is they will, like Ben said, they would guarantee the loan if you default. We can also look at all the plans that the state offers to help you with the closing costs. However, usually the route that we also take is, depending on the market, we can always negotiate those closing costs with the seller as well,
That's
seller's
very good,
concession. But there's ways to do it where you don't come out of pocket. So that's good. And then the first thing that we do as loan officers too, when we're talking about the BA loan is, and I'm curious to ask you on this, Dan, is we ask for a certificate of eligibility, essentially certificate that the BA at first gives you, letting us know that you qualify for the BA programs. But how do you obtain that? Is that for everyone who serves, or is there certain criteria they have to meet?
So the way that I understand it, there's 3 different ways you can leave the military, right? You get what's called a DD-214. That's your separation paperwork, right? And you either have an honorable discharge, which means you signed up for 6 years, 5 years, whatever. You completed your time, you had no issues, you separated because your term was up, right? You could retire from a disability retirement, or you get dishonorably discharged. My understanding is that as long as you leave the military in good standing, which means honorable discharge or medical discharge, that you qualify for all the BA benefits. Then you would go onto the BA website, you put your information and everything else, and you're able to print the certificate that you're talking about.
Okay.
All the forms are available on the VA website. And then other things that maybe don't apply to this that veterans could benefit from, they're all there, right? And that's where you get the information.
Got it. So one thing I want to touch, guys, is and hear me out on this, Ben. So the BA program, it's a great program because, like you said, not a lot of people who serve know about this until they start looking into purchasing the property. But we'll tell the audience what a BA loan is. So essentially, when you're buying your first primary home, you're usually, back then, you would need 20% down. But now we have programs like the conventional, FHA, and the BA loan that with FHA, you will need 3.5% down. With conventional, you will need 3% down. But with the BA loan, here's the sweet spot too, how they make it even better, which I think is great because you guys serve, is not only will you not have to do any down payment, but also usually with conventional and FHA loan, when you don't do 20% down, they charge you what's called PMI, private mortgage insurance. And that runs about $100 to $250 depending on the quote that we get from these PMI companies. But with veterans, you guys don't pay that PMI. So it helps, so you're not only not doing no down payment, we can help you with the closing costs, but your monthly payment essentially is lower because you don't have that PMI, which I think is great. So since we're talking about that benefit, it's for all those people who are serving now, what would you recommend? Because I have friends, right? So think of yourself when you were serving and you're saying, I know I have these benefits. Now with social media, we have so much information. If you were to go back, what would you do different in order to position yourself to have this information right off the bat?
Definitely ask questions, right? I mean, a lot of the times you're trying to get out, you're trying to out-process, you got to turn in your equipment, you're trying to figure out, am I going back home? All these questions that come up to you that you really don't think about what benefits are there, right? When you're separating yourself from the military, you go through a process and it's called the out process, right? And it's just, you're meeting with lawyers, you're meeting with doctors, you're meeting with everybody. Make sure that you're good to go in every aspect there is. And that's when you got to ask the questions. Nowadays, right, I separated in 2013. So nowadays, like you mentioned, social media is very important, right? Everything is out there, right? 2013, it wasn't as popular for you to look something up and say, what benefits are there? If you look on Facebook, TikTok, anything like that, there's commercials. If you're a VA veteran, if you're a veteran, the VA this, the VA that wasn't available for me. Right. So nowadays the information's easier to access, but still ask as many questions as you can. I mean, they're going to point you in the right direction, right?
Great point.
Great point. And sorry, Ben.
No. And I was just wondering, like, how soon after you left the military, assume that you then started a job, did you then start thinking about that, I want to buy a house? How did that come about?
It took me about 3.5, 4 years, because again, my biggest concern was a down payment, right? I left the military and regardless of anything, again, mid-20s, late, who has that kind of money, right?
Correct.
You focus on the other things,
Yeah.
trips, you focus on cars and everything. So I needed some time to put money away. And when I felt that I had enough, the surprising point was to then find out that you didn't need it.
Right,
Correct.
So you couldn't start.
That's
You
what I
couldn't
was gonna
start
go
3 years earlier had you
Right.
not had you known that. So
Yeah.
I was gonna say how sweet probably felt when you were like, after 3 years of putting this money
Right.
aside, I don't need to put that for the purchase. Sweet.
So
but it helped you
Right.
furnish the house, right?
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
Good
That's
point.
true.
Well, and you also have to remember that you still have to show the ability to repay that mortgage.
Correct.
It's not just, I serve, I'm eligible, but we still have to show the underwriter and the program that you have income and you'll be able to pay that monthly payment.
So I have actually a question for either Ian or Elmer. Is that, and perhaps Dan, you know this, with the VA loan, is there a restriction as to who can be on the title? Can it only be the person who qualifies for loan, or can you put a spouse on the title?
You could put a spouse on the title, right? And that's about it, right? So no girlfriend, no significant other. No, it has to be. You have to be legally married for that person to be able to go onto the deed of your mortgage.
That's a good question.
Because
Yeah.
again, the VA is backing up the service member, right? That person might come and go, but if she's your wife, your husband, then the person qualifies. But as long as you're not married, they cannot go into your.
It's a
to
great
the-
question because some people might think, let me apply for this VA loan for my brother here that needs a little help. Or
Yeah.
No, it has to be the service member, and it has to be your primary home.
And it has to be your primary.
You have to live in it, yeah.
And rightfully so, because you earned that right. That's a gift to you, so you should use it with your significant other and not your girlfriend who can take away your property.
Which, by the way, his girlfriend works with me at my office, and we love Carla. All
Shout
of
out
us.
to Carla.
Shout out to Carla. She's amazing.
Yeah, babe.
So yeah, I think again, a very important topic. As Danny just shared, some veterans could be out there participating in the army or possibly kind of already moving into something else, and they might not even know that they have this great benefit, very well deserved after you defend our freedom and our country. That now the government has this program with the banks that you can 0% down to buy your property. Amazing help.
No, correct.
Exactly.
And bank can speak of this. It's always a great time when we're at the closing table with a VA. We always like to ask questions or experience, but at the end of the day, when we give them those keys, it makes us happy that we were able to support and give back to the service that they have provided for us.
100%, 100%. I just had one about a couple weeks ago. Very humble guy. He's by himself, but he was able to buy the property that he was renting for 13 years, I think. And then I think he's got a job that now he's pretty stable on, and was able to meet all the other requirements, because it's important to know that not only being a veteran, it's the one requirement. You have to meet the debt income ratio, show proof that you can afford the mortgage. He was able to fulfill that long plan that he had about buying the house. And this is something that we're seeing a lot in New Jersey, where tenants are now buying the property from their landlord for property that they've been occupying for years. So again, the whole concept about what me and Ben and Elmer put this thing together, we feel like there's so much opportunity and so much programs out there that people doesn't know about.
Correct.
And we want to try to tap into that with the help of our guests, with our knowledge and our experience, to make sure that we provide as much information as we can do to our listeners.
Sorry. Dan, I wanted to ask you, how much time does someone have to spend in the military to be considered that they did it like a tour or service, and then come out and be able to apply for like a VA loan?
I'm so happy you asked that, because I was going to try to throw this piece of information out there, and I didn't know how to bring it up, right? So you don't need to be separated from the military to be able to qualify for a VA loan. As long as you're in the military and you're in good standing with the military, you could be a month in, you could be 30 years in the military. You
that's
qualify
great.
for your VA loan. VA benefits are there for service members of all branches. Anytime, and that includes National Guard, everything, as long as you're part of the military, you qualify for it. My cousin, actually, she's still in, and she bought her house about 6 years ago. So there is no separation. You don't have to wait. You sign the dotted line, you go to boot camp, you come back, start looking for your house, because you literally qualify for it right away.
Oh, that's
That's
great.
great.
That's
Important
great.
piece of information
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. All right, guys. So I guess at this point we can pass along into Danny's then next step of his career, which
Yes.
was property manager.
So one of the questions is, how long did it take me from when I
The transition
Right.
between your military career.
So
to property
doing
management.
that process, I started a career in property management, right? And it was great because it taught me a lot about what kind of house I wanted to buy, what things to look for when you're purchasing a house and everything else. A lot of people don't know that when you're buying into a community, you own a percentage of the property, right? So the exterior of the property is owned by the association, right? They control the siding, the roofing, everything else. And you control what's in the inside. A lot of realtors will tell you you own studs in, right? But that is very not true, right? As a homeowner in association, you own everything that is considered and not considered a common element, right? Your windows only protect your house. Therefore, they're your responsibility. Your water line, from the point that it's shut off from the entire building, from that point forward, is yours, because if the water department turns it off, it only affects you. So the key element to know is what is considered a common element and what is not. In order for you to know that, if you're buying into an association, I always recommend that you take a look at 2 sets of documents. You have what's called your bylaws and you have what's called your master deed. Both of them give you information on what it is that you own and what it is that you're responsible for. One of the biggest things as a property manager is that you would get a phone call and say, hey, this is happening. And to have to tell that homeowner, hey, listen, I'm sorry, but it's not our responsibility. And the question that you always, or the comment that you get is, my realtor said, well, that's okay. Your realtor told you whatever he needed to tell you for you to get into your house, which brings me to my point, right? The more you trust your realtor, the more you know your realtor. The fact that you use an attorney, using the professionals that are there in that industry, right, is there for a reason, right? They're there to help you out. They're here to set you in the right path. But if you do it, oh, well, my friend from high school, I've known him for 17 years, they might not know as much, right? So it's always used to use the professionals that are there for that purpose. They will guide you in the right direction. They will let you know, hey, listen, you might want to take a look at these bylaws, right? Buying into an association dictates what type of grill you could have, how far away from the house you could place it.
Or even if you can have a grill in the
Correct.
patio. Maybe
Whether you can have a pet or no pets,
Right.
what size of pet. Controls things like noise, right? If Elmer wants to clean his condo at 3 o'clock in the morning, well, now he's causing noise to the person below. So all those things are controlled by the
the days that you can move in and out, all that, right?
correct.
Some-
And they're called governing documents, and that's what you want to take a look at. Yeah.
Yeah, some restrict renting too, is that right?
Oh, they
Correct. So recently in the state of New Jersey, to your point, is that a lot of people that used to rent at some point, they would rent a house for a period of time and then eventually buy it. What's happening with associations, and it's happening pretty much all across the country, is that we're running out of room, right? The land is only as big as it is, right? And we've built sideways as long as we can, right? So if you're starting to see a lot of construction starting to go up, right? You're getting taller buildings, condominium associations and everything else. So now you start looking at can I have a grill? Can I not have a grill, right? What is the law? Because condominium associations adhere to township laws. So even though you lived in North Jersey and you could have a grill in your association, now you move to South Jersey, but that association does not. So one rule does not apply to all. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of scenario.
Every association will have their own set of rules.
Correct.
So let me ask you this then, and this will be for you and Ben. So when I'm out there showing the properties to potential buyers and we see a house with an HOA, they like the property, they're okay with the monthly payment, because at the beginning, the preliminary number that you see is the HOA payment, right, monthly.
Correct.
So you like the house, you submit an offer, offers an acceptance. So you recommend, and the attorney, this is where he'll come in, to read the bylaws and the master deed, to have an idea of what you're getting yourself into.
Correct.
So it's not, the HOA would not cover everything as you think. So in other words, if you're looking at an HOA community, have your attorney look at the the bylaws and the master deed. What do you have to add to that, Ben?
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. I mean, often, like you said, maybe they don't allow pets, and, you know, someone has, you know, 2 dogs, and they realize it after they bought, now they have 2 dogs, and they get a notice, from the association that there's gonna be a fine unless the dogs are not there, and so I think it's helpful to know the restrictions, you know, ahead of time, because you don't want a surprise later, so sometimes it's a little difficult getting those documents ahead of time in the transaction, so we have to like ask for it as part of attorney review in New Jersey, but it's good to look at them ahead of
Well,
time.
that's a good thing about New Jersey too, that you have attorney review, so it gives you time. And to your point, Dan, because usually as a realtor, when I will look at a house with a buyer and it has an HOA community, I always tell them, you're the one that has to talk to the management company, the one that knows the bylaws, because you need to hear it from your end. I can't be a third party telling you what I'm being told.
Right.
Because like you said, it's very important for you not to only hear from them, the ones that are governing the bylaws, but also see it in writing with your attorney.
Yep.
Because it's very important. It's not something lightly that you're getting yourself into. It's never fun when somebody tells you what you can and you can do with your property, right?
Right. The issue that I want to mention to that is that when you're the buyer and even the buyer's attorney, the association, the management company doesn't always, like Ben said, give you the documents just because you're buying a property, right? Okay. The best way to get that is to get the seller to provide you a copy of it. No association can deny a homeowner already in the community copies of the bylaws, right? They might be able to charge you for copies, but nowadays everything is digital.
Now they're charging.
Yeah, nowadays they're charging for paper, but everything is digital, right? You could email them and everything else. So the best way to get them is to get them from the seller, right? So to you, as a realtor, you're dealing with the seller's realtor if you're the buyer's realtor, right? And you say, listen, I'm gonna tell you up front, I'm gonna request this. So start getting that process going, because my buyer is gonna go up to that office and they're gonna tell them, I'm not gonna give them to you, you don't live here, right? So it's important for people to know that a lot of property management companies will give you trouble about that, but if you request them from the homeowner, then.
Tip of the day, it's a good tip. And then from title perspective, anything that we should know?
One of those few things that I'm so happy that I'm entitled, because I get involved right after you guys have to do all this. Okay. At that point, the home buyer has to make sure about his bylaws, whether he likes the association monthly fee. There's going to be a capital contribution a couple months in advance, potentially at the closing table. But at that point, then eventually it's going to just become your monthly responsibility. For me per se, if I have a property that is part of either a condominium association or a townhome, it's similar. I just have to find who is the management company that is handling that particular association or community, request what we call a closing statement letter. That's a statement that shows me where does the seller or the owner of the unit stands on the account right now. Are they current? Do they have any violations with the property manager? Any repairs that they didn't do? Things along those lines. So then I can make sure I bring that seller up to date the day of the closing. And then also it tells me what is required from the new owner. As I said, typically a working capital contribution to contribute to the funds of the general association for many projects in the future. Sometimes it's 2 months in advance. There are some associations out there that, believe it or not, they ask for 6 months in advance.
Yeah, I've seen
things
those.
along those lines.
So New Jersey has a law that you can make it 9 times a monthly association fee.
As a capital contribution.
9 times, that's the cap? That's the cap, 9
The
times.
cap in New Jersey is 9 times.
So if they're charging you more than 9 times, wrong.
Typically, I do see between 3 and I think a couple times I see 5 months, which at that point is like a couple thousands of dollars potentially.
Yeah.
So sometimes the buyers call me back and say, where you get this fee from?
Yeah.
And then locally I get that letter that I can say, hey, this is where I get it from. Other than that, for example, like the legal description that I get into the deed of the property, it's not a regular legal description that we call meets and bounds. If the property is 4 sides, it describes one side, the other side, and the 4 sizes. This one is like in regards to the percentage. Every unit has a percentage that total 100% of the whole association. So the legal description is a little different. And one of the things that sometimes create a problem is that I request what it's called the statement of account letter. but the lenders have to request an HOA questionnaire.
Yes.
I don't really get to see it all the time, but I have come around in situations where it kills the deal.
Yeah.
Because the community is in an open litigation.
And I will say, just adding on to it's a very good point, Ian, that a few years ago we had this tragedy in Florida with the condo building collapsing, and I really think that changed the dynamics of buying in association. That the dynamic, I would say, between the lenders and the association, because the lenders started to reach out like, oh, when was the last time this building was inspected? We want to see your budget. It became much more strict. I think, it's probably for the benefit of everybody. It helps, the lenders want to make sure that they're lending money to, a solid association, helps keep the association, up to date, and the buyer is more assured that they're buying into, good association.
That's a good point. Well, let me ask you something, because right now, I don't want to sound too pessimist in the podcast, because they do exist and they're popular. So you've been in there for 13, you were there for 13 years. Can you tell me some good things about these associations?
Well, so I'm going to turn the point, right, that Ben was talking about and to something positive. So yes, something did happen in Florida, but what that did, though, is that it got the DCA, Department of Community Affairs, involved a lot more in condominium associations. For many years, the boards, right, wanted to keep their fees low. What is a fee on a condominium association? It's a monthly fee that you pay. So you pay your mortgage and you pay the association a fee, maintenance fee. That controls landscaping, roof replacements, anything like that the association is responsible for. The association is a nonprofit organization, right? So they have to create revenue. Where does the revenue come from? From the 500,100 units that they built, right? That is the only place that they're going to get revenue for. So that's what dictates what your monthly association fee is. So after what happened in Florida, the DCA said, okay, you know what? We're going to get a little more involved and say, now you're going to have to replace those decks every 20 years as opposed to every 30 years, right? The roofs and everything else. So what that does is that's where you see a lot of the association fees going up, because now we got to create more revenue a lot quicker to be able to make those repairs a lot sooner, right? So you look at a five-month capital contribution, and to you, you might say, hey, that's a lot, but to that person, it's not, because now they're going to get their deck or they're going to get their roof or their siding replaced in 10 years or 15 years, which is what the reserves are for, and that's what that money is going for.
Great point.
The good thing about buying into an association is that you're not responsible for roof replacement, siding replacement. We're all in the industry. We all have friends that have replaced roofs. A roof replacement could cost you anywhere between $10,000 to $30,000, depending on how many squares the roof is, right? But you pay a monthly fee, and you don't have to worry about that, right? Because the association is responsible to replace that roof. Snow cleaning or snow removal. Right?
Snow removal.
As you see, the winters are getting worse and worse. We're not getting as much snow, but we're getting a lot more ice. So now the associations have to pay for that, and that is the one number that can never be accounted for. You don't know how many inches of snow or how many snow ice storms you're going to get. So that is the one number that throws off your budget, right? Associations work on a yearly budget. I could say I'm going to replace two roofs. It's going to cost me $50,000. That's a fixed number. Great. I could plan for that. But I can't plan for something that is unforeseen, like snow, right? So that throws off a lot of budgets. And a lot of communities sometimes have to borrow from the reserves, which is money they will later use to replace decks, everything else. So that's why you see those numbers go up.
So they're not the same account, the reserve, and where they keep like the monthly association
Correct.
for the day-to-day operation.
Correct. And prior to what happened in Florida, the DCA or the state of New Jersey had no control or could not dictate how much an association needed to have for reserves, right? Nowadays, they're trying to pass a law. I'm not sure if they already did. As you mentioned, I'm no longer with property management, but when I was there a year ago, they were still trying to work on that bill to pass it, where they could dictate that. So did it pass or not? I'm not sure. But if it does, it only benefits the homeowner. They might not see it that way, right? Because again, as young home buyers or even retired people that are on fixed incomes, it's hurting your pocket. But it's protecting your property. It's protecting your property values.
Like I would think like if I would be on my 20s and I'm doing pretty good for myself and I want to buy a house and I can afford it, A property owner association will make sense. I don't have to cut my yard. I don't have to deal with the snow.
Helps you with the maintenance.
I'm
Yeah.
young, exactly.
You don't have to clean the pool if it has one.
That's true. That's
Especially
true.
if you're lazy and you don't like maintenance.
And it is.
That's
And-
me.
And when you look at it, my understanding is that that's what condominium associations were for. Were for the young professionals that just didn't have the time.
You don't have the
right?
time, yeah.
A lot of them, when they started in New Jersey, they were near the big cities, right? Where the hospitals were, where the schools were.
Right.
Because you would get a young couple, just graduated college, got married, bought a small condominium, and they didn't have the Sundays to mow the lawn, right? They didn't want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and then clean the snow to go to work. So those are all the benefits that a condominium association provides.
Like as a young couple, like if a great salt pitch, if your roof has a leak, we'll take care of it. It's not up to you, kind
Correct.
of thing. If the roof has an issue or something like that.
Actually, that was my first home, was a townhouse.
Oh,
And
yeah?
It was great. I mean, I was like working a lot of hours at a law firm. I was probably working, 70 hours a week, and I wouldn't have had time to cut the grass or,
Right.
take care of the outside. And it was
Correct.
nice for, a few $100s a month. Someone took care of that. I didn't have to really worry about it. So it's
Yeah, the
definitely
convenience of it, and
benefits.
that's what it was built for.
Just to summarize again, if you're looking into an HOA, just read the bylaws, read the master deed, and then just be informed. One thing that caught my attention though, that you were in property management for 13 years. Was that your first job or your first job right after serving?
It was. I actually started, I had enough leave saved up in the military where I started working for property management as I was out processing the military. I just didn't want to get paid for the leave, so I started taking,
You didn't take
this many days.
any
and
couple
everything
months
else.
off after your military career, take a break, nothing like back
Straight
into
from
the
working hard to
work.
working hard.
Oh my
And you
God.
liked it. You were
And
working.
I did. It was a good job. You get to deal with people. You get to fix problems, and to me that was always the thing. I was always wanted to be involved in projects and so on and so forth. And he taught me a lot because, like Ben said, his first home was a townhouse. I was looking into associations, and so I started working in one. And I said, you know what? I don't want somebody to be able to tell me you can't paint your house, or you can't have that grill, or you're only allowed one car. I just didn't want that.
I mean, it's really nice for young people. Many of these associations, there's a pool, tennis courts, and it's so nice to have that where you don't have to care for the outside. You can go, in the summertime, relax at the pool, play tennis. And, if you have a house and you don't have tennis courts, you're going to have to go join a club or find somewhere to
Correct.
play. So many things like right at your fingertips, right at,
So what I'm hearing here is once you're almost done with your servicing time, start looking at the VA benefits and go buy a property in an HOA association.
I mean,
So-
there's ups and downs with everything.
So,
Yeah.
honestly, and if I have to give, some sort of do it this way, right? I wish the way I would have done it was to buy my house well before I left the military.
Okay.
Right? Because again, you could benefit from the VA loan right away.
As an active member.
Right. As long as you know you're coming back to New Jersey, right? And again, any state for that matter. Buy your house. It would still be your home of residence. You just can't rent it or anything like that, but buy it, right? Because while you're away, you could still, keep making payments on your mortgage. Let's say you
Building
do a
equity.
10-year, right, gaining equity. Let's say you do 10 years. You didn't live in the property for 10
Yeah.
years, but you pay 10 years worth of mortgage. So you move into a 10-year home that you've had for 10 years, and it's like brand new because you never really lived there, right?
And you're halfway through the mortgage
Correct.
payments. Amazing.
So I would recommend that.
What else would you recommend for someone who's about to be done with their service time and in a way of like preparing for the work and find a job or find a career? What resources do you know now that you didn't know back then?
So when you look at the different trades, right? Right now, to say that I want to get into the trades and everything else, but it's the people you know teach you a lot, right? Hanging out with you guys, like you guys mentioned the poker game, but just sitting with you guys talking and learning, right? It's what gets me to want to get into real estate, right? Again, if you buy 3-4 properties, I buy my first house with a VA because I'm going to live there. I live there for 2-3 years. Then I rent that property out, and then I move into a bigger house with a VA loan, and so on and so forth. So just getting information from the professionals, right? I don't go to a doctor to pay my house. I go to a doctor when something hurts, because that's what he knows. I don't go see an attorney when I need a mechanic, because right? So get the information from the professionals, because at the end of the day, they'll guide you even better than the internet or anything else out there. When you make friends with people, and again, the value they bring to your life and who they are and what they do. Again, Ben and I have met recently, but look at the conversations we're having. We're talking about HOA homes. I just found out that he owned an HOA. So he knows the pains of it, and he knows the benefits of it, right? Hanging out with you guys, just knowing, all right, this is available. You could get this property or that property. You could purchase it using this loan or that benefit,
Correct.
and so on and so forth. So what I recommend to people is just stay informed at the end of the day, right? Walk into a real estate agency and say, hey, listen, I got questions, right? To you, it might seem like a potential customer, right? But to that person, they might be moving away or something, but they'll have an idea of, okay, these are the things I need to look at. These are the things that I should be focusing in.
And it's vice versa too, because it was funny when we met up with Danny to talk to him about getting him over into the podcast for the show. I have sit up with Danny now, a personal friend of mine, multiple times. I know you were a property manager when we met. And finally, we actually got into the conversation, and it was funny to see Danny talking my language. Yeah. The HOA, the condo, the bylaws, and he actually taught us a little more than, exactly a lot that we were not fully aware of it. So it was a great conversation. So right after that point, 12 years of a successful, or 13 years of a successful property manager career, now you're at the Department of Labor of the state of New Jersey. Right around the corner from my office in the capital of New Jersey, Trenton. You did share with us, you've been there for how long now, Danny?
I've been there almost a year.
Almost a year.
Next month will be a full year.
I remember when we were talking and you were going for it, how important it was for you to get the answer that you were there, so I'm happy for you. But you did share with us something very amazing that the Department of Labor was coming out, and in regards to people that are curious about, for example, how can I become an electrician? And you were mentioning that the Department of Labor just came out, I don't know, recently or a few months ago, with this particular website or portal where people can go in, get themselves data and ideas or ways where they can get educated, certified, and fulfill their goal. For me, that was like, why is it that not everybody knows this? I have no idea. Share a little bit about that, your time, how do you get into the Department of Labor, how has it been there so far, and now from the private sector back again into the public sector, what's your saying on your...
So my saying is, once government, always government, right? I love being part of a structured environment. When the opportunity presented itself for me to apply for the job at the Department of Labor, I took it. Being military, you get certain benefits, right? So being a disabled veteran, I jumped to the top of the list. I had to pass my test and everything else. And that's essentially how I got in. The cool thing about what we do at the Department of Labor is the Department of Labor deals with everything, wages, minimum wages, so on and so forth. But what intrigues me the most is a website that's called My New Jersey, My Career NJ is the name of the website. And it guides you. If you're a kid graduating high school and you want to pursue a certain career, go to the website. As I mentioned before, the key to everything is information. The more you know, the better educated decisions you're going to be able to make. So that website tells you, okay, to your point, you want to be an electrician. Okay, how many jobs are there for electricians in the state of New Jersey? Does it make sense to go to an electrical school and so on and so forth? Well. Yep. So the office that I work for within the Department of Labor, that's what we do. We collect the data. Right? We look at townships, we look at municipalities, we look at everything that there is there for. How many jobs are there for this? How many jobs are there for that? What is the number one job, which happens to be nursing in the state of New Jersey, right? We have, anywhere you look, there's a hospital. You said? Nursing is number one job out there right now.
Makes sense. We have a bunch of hospitals.
Correct. So you go into the website and you look at what you want to do. It also shows you what benefits the state provides you, what colleges you could apply to, what benefits you could get from, and so on forth. On top of that, you throw your VA and you might go to school for free,
Correct.
right?
What ways is the Department of Labor using to market this, if any?
Right now, TV and social
it's a
media,
commercial.
right? We have a commercial out there, and it is on social media.
How long did this came out?
So the actual website started about 2 years ago, when it was out there, but there was a lot of kinks that had to be worked out, and they've done it, and so now the push to get it out to the people, it's out there.
Can you repeat the website one more time?
It's called My Career NJ.
We're gonna have it right here for everybody to follow, right?
It's good.
But yeah,
Yeah.
and it provides you a lot of information. Yeah.
It's a lot of decisions that we have to make, and nowadays it's we're informed. Reach out. It's great to have this information to make these decisions.
Again, when you look at it 20 years ago, right, before the big social media push, right, and you guys are younger, right, so you guys know what I'm talking about. Ben and I could look back, and I'm not saying you're old, Ben, by no means.
I am.
Could look back and say, had I known this 20 years ago, right? So you guys, it's on your fingertips, right? You could get any information you want right there and then. What college benefits you better for, right? What career? You know, if I go into real estate, what else can I do? Can I become a loan officer? Can I do mortgage titles, right? It wasn't until I met you. Mind you, I was in property management for 13 years, running my own office, dealing with title companies. Never put a face to the name. Never. It wasn't until I met you, I'm like, oh, so this is the guy that will call me asking me for this. This is the guy, right? And it's interesting because now you get to see what you guys go through. Like you mentioned, my girlfriend works for your office, so now I know what goes into it, right?
Yeah.
You guys don't see our side. You guys are saying, oh, well, you're going to charge me $200 for those documents. Yeah, sure, because somebody has to put them together. Right? Somebody has to go into the systems and say, you know, this person knows this much money, right? Or this lien, or so on and so forth. So you got to look at every aspect of it, right? And that's kind of what I see with the Department of Labor or my career NJ, is if you're going to look for something, let me create one place for you to get all the information. So you don't have to jump from the mortgage company to the real estate company to the bank. No, let me put it all in one spot.
Which is gonna be here at the website, right?
So again, if you could get that information, then you know you should be able to pursue a career.
And people are always, well, I can speak for myself. I'm always happy to help people who serve, because you know it's the one thing that you can do is you can inform, and it's thank you for your service. Yeah, what else do you need? And it's great. Now to summarize our conversation, because I think we have so much information with you. Can you just in 2 minutes tell us, tell that young self, people who are serving, like what should you do, and summarize that conversation that we had today?
Stay informed, get to know the people that are there, the websites or channels of information out there. Always look at what you're buying, whether it's into an association or not. Use your attorney, use your realtor, right? You're paying them a fee, and I hate to say it that way, but you're paying them for something. Get their services, right? Trust in them. That's what they're there for. They're charging you that money because they want what's best for you. So trust them. I have a lot of friends that said, well, my attorney said this, but no. If your attorney told you, that's for a reason, right? If your realtor told you, that's for a reason. And look at what benefits are there. Pursue them, use them, and you should be okay. And don't play poker with Elmer. I mean, those will be my advice.
We are growing the poker game, so if anybody's listening and play poker,
send us an email. We have a great poker club. It's fun. We love it.
And I wanted to tell you guys from both sides, all three of you, and again, you're an attorney, so you deal with this all the time. But I know association documents, so if any time, as a friend or anything else, you guys need me to take a look at it. You'll get a stack of papers about 400 deep. But what really interests you is about 3 pages of what belongs to you, and knowing where to look for that information is what's key. So
thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Danny. And I can't pass the fact, information is key. Information is key, and that's basically our goal in this podcast. We wanted to make sure we're getting people like Danny with a world of knowledge on things that maybe we're not the experts so much. We know a little bit of it, enough for us to represent our clients the best way possible we can. And we're going to continue to do this, bring guys like Danny here that can share their knowledge, their experience in the world, and fight along with real estate. And you know, I can finish with saying thank you so much for keeping me in the bucket with the young guys here with Elmer. Appreciate it, my brother. And again, guys, thank you so much for joining us in another episode of the New Jersey, the Closing Table NJ. Again, Elmer, Ben, myself, Ihan, Quijano, and Danny, my brother. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
tonight.
Danny.
Thank you guys for having me. It was a pleasure, man.